Hello and welcome everybody to this very beautiful session that we're going to do. It's a chain reaction. I am very excited. My name is Malcolm Ohanwe. I am a journalist from Germany. And I'm very glad and happy to be doing this with Goethe-Institut. Right now we're going to talk about in this segment about decolonizing the internet. So how do we do that? What does that mean actually? Like, there's so many aspects of our social media usage or websites that are not necessarily where they need to be. So some of the most popular things, or some of the easiest things for people to understand, is there used to be this Russian app called Face app where you could you would basically do like that, and then take a selfie, and then it will turn you into a woman, for example, or it will turn you into something else. So first of all, the woman and man categories is very binary. So there's no option for being a little in between, or acknowledging the fact that there's more than two genders. So that is already in itself an issue that needs to be talked about, because it reinforces sort of these social norms that we have to abide by. And the other thing is, for me as a black person, I thought I would turn into a woman with with kinky hair, like with my Afro textured type hair, like beautiful Afro crown hair. And it gave me like the long, thin, straw type, European type hair, the long, fine hair. And so even a lot of the apps that you use reinforce sort of European beauty standards. It's also with emojis. So like the first emojis, they were yellow, they weren't of white complexion, but the features, so the nose features or the hair that they had, definitely resembled European people or white people. And that's also with the video games. Most of the people, even Super Mario, which is from a Japanese company, that is a white man. So it's the walking white man propaganda, and it lets you know this is the norm. This is anything else. It's just like there might be one black character in Super Smash Bros. Or in Nintendo, but they will never be. They will be defined by their blackness because there's so few of them. So those are some of the aspects that you definitely have to think about. Also, as far as like who gets reach. So when a white person says something that a black person will usually say, like, I don't know, Black Lives Matter. People tend to give white people more attention and clap for them more because they're like, oh my God, he says it, so if he says it, then it must be true, he must be unbiased. And that also comes from a thinking that we have been indoctrinated to, that we deem white male cis-presenting people, so people who are not trans, as more respectable or more credible or more reliable, less emotional, more rational. Those are some of the things that have been carried to us through media and through the colonial history that we've gone through. It has also been institutionalized because of because of things like women not being able to vote, or women not being able to run for offices, or black people basically being treated as cattle. That has led to more white people white cis men being in these positions. So then you naturally associate, leadership with white men, because that's what you see historically. So there's so many aspects that also play part in the internet, as far as who do you follow, who do you deem respectable. Also when it comes to beauty, so I always like to think, I follow a lot of black people, follow a lot of females, queer people, and I try to follow more people that maybe not necessarily that society wouldn't deem sexy or beautiful. Especially also in queer contexts, you like the muscles, you like the which is fine, or you like you like big breasts or whatever it is that you like. But you should try and question, where do these beauty standards come from, and why do you give certain people more likes or more reach, or lever them more privilege because they're prettier? That is something that you also have to question. And that also ties in with the question that I'm going to ask. So I want to know, how many people do you guys follow that are not the same cultural background, race, or ethnicity as you? Or how many people do you follow that society wouldn't deem as attractive, that aren't, necessarily representing the norm of beauty? That could be also, for example, somebody that is a fat person. I would like to know, let's talk about it. How political is it? And there you go.
Hi, this is Lorena Jaume-Palasí. I think and research about the ethical dimension of technology. I have founded a few nonprofits working on the applied ethics of technology, and I look very much forward to Malcolm's question. How many people do you follow on social media who do not have the same cultural background as yours? And how many people do you follow who are not considered conforming? And to what extent is that a political decision? So as an ethicist working on discrimination and bias, I am very lucky to have friends and colleagues across all 5 continents. This means that my timelines are very heterogeneous. I see lots of different languages and alphabets that I don't understand. And I see lots of comments and expressions of concern and joy from very different people and groups. Most of, or many of those colleagues belong to vulnerable groups such as the LGBT community or minorities that are being threatened by political suppression, or people working at the intersection of digital technologies and specific human rights that are being also that are taking also a lot of risks to do the work that they do in their everyday lives. And for me, it is a political decision to have that richness in my timeline. But it's also no coincidence that I can only see that variety, and I can only follow the work of many colleagues and friends and belonging to vulnerable groups on social media, in contrast to the work that I'm able to follow of more privileged colleagues living either in Europe or in North America. And that has to do with a few aspects of the broader internet that I think that need to be addressed within this conversation when we talk about decolonizing the internet in the 21st century. The internet is broader than social media, and if we take a look at a few stats from, say, the Internet World Statistics from 2019, we, according to them, have 54% of all the content produced in the internet in English, and 6% has been made in Russian, and 6% of the content produced in the internet was made in German, 4.9% in Spanish, and 4% in French. This means that most languages have less than 3% of the content produced in the internet in their own mother tongue. And that is not an expression of disinterest. It has a lot more to do with an expression of inequality, of access and normalization and amplification of specific cultures towards other. Many of the cultures that are not present in the internet have a weak electricity and telecommunication infrastructure. They have policies like internet shutdowns that make it accessing the internet harder, and have many other issues that make participation and contribution to content production and knowledge sharing in the internet very difficult. And this goes over to other socioeconomical aspects that have a direct impact on that. I think it also goes, and I think it also needs a closer view to the more technical layers of the internet. The protocols and standards of the internet also decide what is possible, what type of services can be delivered online, and how can they look like and how can they not look like. And I know of a few MENA developers who are unable to integrate the programs that they developed into the broader internet because those protocols are not interoperable with their work. And that has not to do with the technicality of the way how they work, but with the logical and mathematical approaches and the culture within which they develop software. And that is on another dimension of colonialization that needs addressing. Also, the fact that we're having this setting here with English as the default language is also part of the problem. We are still thinking to having a big outreach with so to say, a proxy language that is not shared by many people in the world, that is difficult to access by many people in the world. And this is the next question that I like to pass. How often do you use automatic translation programs, read texts, and communicate in a language that you don't speak?
Pick the question sent by Lorena Jaume-Palasí. My name is Renata Ávila. I am Guatemalan. I am a human rights lawyer and technology expert living in Chile at the moment. I am the executive director of Fundación Ciudadanía Inteligente, an initiative trying to strengthen democracy with the use of technology. Let's see what she has to ask me. So the question reads as follows. How often do you use automatic translation programs to read texts and to communicate in languages you do not speak? Well, I have to admit that I use it often. I use it all the time. I use it, and it helps me a great deal when communicating to an international community, especially when I don't speak the language. Somehow it is a very useful tool at the tip of my finger, and breaking borders and helping me to have a more effective communication with the outside world. For example, I lead an initiative called the Progressive International, and there we need to quickly communicate with people in Russia, with people in the Arab world, and it is really easy to and smooth to use these kind of services. But while using these kind of services, I also worry, because most of the services providing automatic translation are in the dominant languages of the internet. There's very little investment, and there's very little usability and no meaningful involvement of most of the languages all over the world. So what is happening is, by us Spanish speakers, English speakers, French speakers engaging intensely in using these systems and training these systems with our voice, with our searches and so on, we are contributing to a cycle where all the translation power is concentrated in the hands of few, and all is for profit. Very little of it goes and is used for technology in the public interest. And we are not only contributing to this automatic translation from one language to the other, we are also contributing to other form of translation. Computers are not as sophisticated as humans yet. Even if you read all these things on artificial intelligence, they cannot differentiate things and read nuances that the human eye can. And we do the same that we do with the systems of automatic translation. We do it with images, with reCAPTCHA, for example. We are giving away our work, and our efforts to identify images that later can help make better and make more perfect systems like drone systems that will contribute to the assassination of people without a trial. And those are reflections that make me very scared. And that's on the one hand. On the other hand, on the public interest technology and its development, one of the things, when I think about it, I think of people in my country. Indigenous communities, they speak 23 different languages in Guatemala, where I come from, and in neighboring country, Mexico, is hundreds of languages. And those languages are not, there's not a market for it, but there's a great need. of automatic translation, especially because millions of people needing to access health, needing to access justice systems. And for example, now with the deportation of children in the United States, there was a shortage of translators in the indigenous languages. We need to decolonize this, not only producing more content on the relevant languages, but making the automatic translation technology available for public interest services, for services provided by governments, for communities to contribute and enrich their language commons by bringing them up to this century and by serving the needs of those who need that the most. And well, in that line is a deep reflection on our choices, our decisions, how we consume technology, and that's why I prepared my question here that I'm going to send to the next speaker, and it reads as follows. From your list of most used internet services and applications, those that you use from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to bed, how many of them are locally produced? How many of them are produced abroad? How many of them belong to big tech companies? And are any of them oriented for public interest purposes? That's the question that will go to the next speaker. Thank you for the invitation, and I hope you enjoyed your time answering it.
Hello, my name is Reem Al-Masri, and I'm a journalist covering the intersection of technology and politics at the Jordan-based independent media organization Hiber.com. I'm here to answer a question posted by my friend Renata Ávila, and it reads as following. From your list of most used internet services and applications you use from the moment that you wake up to the moment you go to bed, how many of them are locally produced? How many of them are produced abroad? How many of them belong to big tech companies? Any of them are public interest oriented? This question had made me go through a reflection experiment over the internet services and applications that I use as a journalist and as well promote as a digital security trainer for media organizations. I definitely feel safer using browsers and search engines developed by not-for-profit organizations and communities. I feel safer using end-to-end open source communication applications developed by not-for-profit communities as well, putting privacy at the design of these applications. However, I have to admit that the tools that we use as a journalist and as an independent media organization to engage in public discussions and to create and distribute content and to reach our audiences and sources, there are mainly tools owned by big tech for-profit companies residing in Silicon Valley like Google, Facebook, and Twitter. And although these companies claim that they have the public interest at the center of their content moderation, the centralized process of their content moderation and the ambiguity of their algorithm through which they filter content have often subjected us and our content to different layers of censorship. For example, we cannot promote content on Facebook that are deemed political to Western countries. So we cannot reach our Arabic-speaking audience in these Western countries, even if this content is relevant to them. And we also often get our posts get rejected for promotion requests because they contain certain political keywords that are deemed controversial, despite the local context through which these keywords were used in our articles. Another example of the authority of algorithms is when Twitter has disabled hundreds of human rights Egyptian accounts, human rights activist accounts, last year at the midst of the anti-regime protests that were happening. They apologized for it afterwards, but it's still another example of censorship done through these algorithms. As a journalist and as an independent media organization, we are in constant navigation of global for-profit tools and local open source tools in order to make and distribute our content. For example, in order to bypass state censorship, we use global for-profit tools to get to our audiences and try to also bypass certain red lines. And at the same time, in order to bypass the censorship placed on our content by the authority of the algorithm, we try to use open source decentralized tools and also build our community through offline tools, trying to make stronger connections through offline networking with our audiences and build local and regional networks with other independent media organizations. For us, owning our own tools of knowledge production and distribution is at the heart of decolonizing the internet. This means returning to times where communities developed tools and produced knowledge through open source applications like Usenets, wikis, blogs. And my favorite application that resembles this kind of spirit in decentralized application is Rocket Chat, which is an open source secure communication tool through which you can download a copy on your own local server and have full ownership over the archive of your communication and over your security without any centralized server. And I have to mention here that there was a time where Arab techies has conglomerated together using open source tools in order to build their own knowledge production tools. And one of the very prominent figures of tech activists is Ala Abdel Fattah, who is currently in his 6 years of prison, serving his prison sentence, 10-year prison sentence after he violated, or because he violated the anti-demonstration law in Egypt in 2014. And I mentioned this example, I mentioned Ala Abdel Fattah's example as an example of how the state also finds a threat in activists who try to build their own tools dependent from the state surveillance and censorship. For us, decolonizing the internet is having ownership over these tools away from big tech censorship or state censorship. Until then, the road will be filled with constant negotiations over the global and local structures that we use. So whether it was profit-based platforms or decentralized applications and internet services. I will end here, but I'd like to direct a question to the moderator.
Phew. This was really fun to watch. I got myself a new little outfit. I love the answers that you guys gave. Really thank you very much to Lorena Jaume-Palasí, Renata Ávila Pinto, and Reem Al-Masri. I love this. Gave me a little bit of Eurovision Song Contest, you know what I'm saying? Because it was like, you know, من Urdun, you know, marhaba, ahla wa sahlan, hola, que estamos de Guatemala, Berlin. And, you know, I was lucky because I actually spoke, like, we could have did this in Spanish and Arabic because I study Spanish. My family's from Palestine, so this was a nice little mix. So the question that I got from Reem Al-Masri is, what are the traits of an application or service that makes you feel secure and have ownership over your data and archive? Does it exist? See, this is a really, really good question. So, I need to think about it because I don't think it exists. Because you can, I mean, maybe it does exist, but I'm going to be completely honest. I am not the person that's going to, you know, read all of the details because it's very long. You know, my time is short. You just like, well, whatever. I mean, what is my option? Not doing it? You still going to use it because that's literally how I make my money. So obviously there's going to be, you know, conditions or stipulations that I'm not going to be super content with. So I don't think, I mean, ownership over your data, ownership over your, I don't even think that exists. I mean, obviously I would love to, since I lose a lot of my content, I would love to have an endless archive that is safe, that only I can access, that nobody else can use, and that I can always retrieve. And if I forget my password, maybe I can still get into it, but somebody else could never get into it because they have to identify themselves in a way that, but then hold up, what if you want to give somebody else, power to access your stuff? So it's actually not that easy to answer. I don't think it exists. I don't think I would have to, maybe I need to be like also Mark Zuckerberg, you know what I'm saying? Myself. Maybe I should create, that's also a thing, especially as a Black person, that we don't own none of the social media platforms, be it TikTok, Twitter, and they have time and time again showed that Black people are not their priority, even though we create a lot of the humor and a lot of the, a lot of the cultural movements come from Black people, but they don't benefit off of it. I also wanted to reflect on the rest of the points that were made because I found a lot of the stuff really interesting. So in Egypt or in the Arab world, the Middle Eastern world, they face repressions because of the things that they want to post. So we recently have TikTok where they didn't allow the Black Lives Matter hashtag to flourish, or they admitted, that was according to German research, Netzpolitik, shout out to you. They admitted that they would actually censor fat people, queer people, because they would deem them more likely to be exposed to bullying, which that's, bogus. They couldn't get their reach and they couldn't make the same money. So I think this was a great thing to think about. Also for me, as far as with the which languages you can access. So for me, my mother's Palestinian or German of Palestinian descent. My father's German of Nigerian descent. So naturally, when I was a young child, we would speak Nigerian English, even Pidgin. So wouldn't be that. So that is the granot for me. Granot, that would be peanuts, groundnut. So, but there's hardly any content in Pidgin English. There's BBC that do it. I was very surprised when I saw that. I was like, yeah, that makes sense. Of course, obviously people need to understand what it is. But there's you hardly see any content in Yoruba, in Igbo, when you go to Wikipedia. So that also is you can't educate yourself in a way that another person can because they speak English. So, it has a monopoly on education and knowledge and resources that will be placed on colonial and Eurocentric languages. Because also me, having studied linguistics as well, languages can also, they sort of represent a reality, or they shape a certain world. So the language is specifically made for white bodies and white expression and white art and white culture and lives in that. So when that is the only language that you're able to speak, we don't even know the detriments that come with that. We don't even know what that means if you can't express certain levels of cuisine or race concepts and stuff. You gotta use English, or you gotta use, like she named, German or Spanish, which I was surprised that German had more online content than Spanish. I was like, damn, we Germans, we really be out here twittering like that. So it was a very, very great impulse that was given. I really, really enjoyed that, and thinking about how are we linguistically limited, and what can we do? What is a solution? Is there a solution to that? But we should definitely think about it, because on the other hand, there's people who are proponents of damn, well, it's good as 50% English, because then there's less barriers. So everybody just learn the language and then we could talk. So I think that's where maybe artificial intelligence and being able to create translations could be a very, very great movement of decolonizing the internet, so that everybody can access education without having to learn a European language. So I found that very interesting, or Arabic, which is also a made language. I really, really enjoyed this. I hope you guys have plenty of more ideas. This was a great chain reaction. It's actually called Good Question, Next Question. So if you want to, if you're like, oh my God, this inspired me, I need to see more, you just go and Google Good Question, Next Question, and you go, you know what I'm saying? And you're going to find it. You're going to figure it out. You can follow me on Malcolm Music. You can see it here behind me, Malcolm Music. That's my Instagram channel. You could follow me on Malcolm Ohanwe. It was a great pleasure. Follow what Goethe-Institut is doing. They are awesome. And yeah, stay knowledgeable, decolonize your environment, and power to the people. No justice, no peace.